The Boys is a show that's been taking the world by storm over the past couple of years due to its gruesome representation of superheroes, shining a light on the darkest sides of humanity and showing how dystopian a world of superheroes could be if the ones wielding the powers weren't pure bastions of justice. It's a representation of superheroes that's vastly different from ones we've grown up with, from properties like Marvel and DC, where big-name superheroes are mostly saints, where DC has Superman, The Boys has Homelander, an all-powerful superhero in his world who's a bit fucked up in the head and is prone to a naughty little thing called murder. I'm sure you've seen a lot of him recently since his reaction gifs are among the best in the game and power skillers get pretty hot over him. Homelander, the ultimate hero in the public's eyes, is actually the most terrifying antagonist of The Boys in my opinion, as anyone in his presence knows that they're just a cockroach that could be crushed by him on a whim. I always thought a character like him would be amazing in an anime, and the premise of The Boys in general is something I think could translate really well into a bizarre anime setting. Recently, my prayers for such an anime were answered with a show called Go Go Loser Ranger, also known as Ranger Reject, whose source material is written by the genius behind Quintessential Quintuplets. Did we get the wrong author? How did he go from making harem manga to fucked up Power Rangers? Ranger Reject has managed to encapsulate the feeling of terrifyingly mighty superheroes that I got from The Boys, except instead of superheroes, we have Power Rangers. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Power Rangers and their heroic deeds. I remember seeing DVDs of them whenever I was stranded at a family friend's house or reruns during the weekend. It was always so hyped to see these Rangers in flashy outfits fight monsters using crazy cool weapons and transformations, and I held them in the same regard as superheroes. Just like The Boys, Ranger Reject decided to go with the darker, more realistic route when it came to the portrayal of the Rangers, propping them up as an organization that the vast public adores. However, when you look beyond the surface, it's an organization littered with fraud and horrible secrets that make it clear that the Rangers that everyone looks up to are helmed by complete monsters who don't really have any moral boundaries. In fact, the strongest Ranger and the one everyone adores the most, the Red Keeper, is very similar to Homelander when it comes to his overwhelming strength and how egotistical he is, to the point where he'll murder someone without hesitation if he feels like it. He's also got that same terrifying smile as well, the kind of smile you see and think to yourself, wow, this guy's a psycho. Then again, everyone in the show is a psycho. Ranger Reject isn't just about the Rangers. In fact, it's very much about the foes the Rangers are fighting, foes known as invaders. 13 years ago, a gigantic floating fortress appeared out of nowhere, looming over the city of Amanogawa, marking the beginning of the conflict between the Rangers and the nefarious monster army. This conflict has an interestingly commercial schedule, taking place every Sunday where a boss monster descends to Earth with a group of indistinguishable black and white fighters who inevitably get wiped out by the Dragon Keepers, the 5 strongest Rangers around that wield the power of the gods themselves. People gather in huge crowds to watch the Dragon Keepers take down formidable foes that sometimes have them on the back foot before wiping them out and securing Earth's future once more. They're split into 5 different squads which have a corresponding color and specialty, and they're always recruiting the eager public to join. Red specializes in monster extermination, yellow in research and development, etc. Each squad basically has their own duties that pertain to Rangers, and also helping the public through community service. They are the true heroes of the people. At least, this is the widespread public perception of the Dragon Keepers and the Rangers. In reality, the strongest invaders had been dealt with by the Dragon Keepers a long time ago, and the Keepers have basically turned the remaining grunts, the fighters, into a glorified circus whose ass they whoop every single week in front of the world. They basically have no choice but to cooperate since these fighters are quite weak, with their only power being able to transform and mimic others, along with being basically immortal unless they're attacked with specific weapons. Their weekly routine is basically showing up, dying, regenerating, and going back to the drawing board to think up of a new monster for the Rangers to defeat. The Keepers keep the fighters obedient using the threat of their sheer strength, and they think of them as nothing more than dirt that they need to dispatch every week to keep up their popularity. With this popularity, they're able to get more merchandise sales, sponsors, and improve public opinion of themselves, which makes their pockets grow deeper. It's WWE but with Power Rangers. It's fake fighting and fabricated storylines, except WWE wrestlers are pretty dope while these guys are just maniacs. It's here where we meet the main character of Ranger Reject, Fighter D. His name is D, just D, so you know he's gotta be pretty good at fight. D is pretty frustrated with the state of his life. He's a non-human invader whose sole purpose is to take over the world and take down the Rangers. He has no parents, no past. He was created out of nothing from the executive bosses that he once served, bosses that are believed to be dead thanks to the Keepers. Unlike the other fighters in the fortress, he doesn't want to take this treatment lying down because of his own pride as a monster. Pride that was stomped on repeatedly to the point where young'uns watching the Sunday Showdown cheer for the monsters to do their best because they're just that pitiful and weak. D vows to take down all the Dragon Keepers so that the invaders can finally accomplish their executive's wish to conquer the world, and to do that, he uses his mimicry ability to pose as a regular human and attempted to join the Rangers via an exam. At first, I thought Ranger Reject was gonna go with the route of D integrating with human society, realizing that not all humans are that bad, and attempting to fix the Ranger organization so that they're the true heroes of the people and not just a bunch of frauds walking around, tricking the public to make money while dangling their supreme power in front of everyone. Thankfully, Ranger Reject is not that predictable. In fact, even after reading over 100 chapters of it, I still have no clue what the hell is gonna happen next, and even though things are quite confusing, it's a really enjoyable kind of sporadic. As I mentioned earlier, nothing is as it seems, and the world that D thought he'd be integrating into isn't nearly as simple as humans versus monsters. As Ranger Reject goes on, the dark secrets of both Rangers and monsters begin to surface, and D himself is completely baffled by how everything really works. We come to find out that the boss bosses that D so loyally wanted to follow and lay his life down for have actually completely abandoned the monsters in the fortress and are pretty much roaming the city below, murdering whoever they please and calling it salvation. On one side, we have the Rangers, who have the power to annihilate these murderous boss invaders and are willing to do so, although they do extremely shady things from human experimentation to covering up casualties and are overall pretty rotten. On the other hand, we have boss invaders who can go around killing innocents and won't be stopped unless the Rangers step in. In the center of it all, we have D, a fighter who has no power compared to the heads of both sides and is trying to figure out who he is, what he wants, what he should do, and who he's even fighting for in the first place. He's been betrayed by his own bosses who really don't care about him at all, humiliated by the Rangers time and time again, but he doesn't have the power by himself to really do anything. He has no idea who to believe or what to believe, and as he spends more time on the surface, his confusion grows more as he tries to understand the reasoning of humans who often make no sense. Fortunately for D, he's not completely alone and he manages to become comrades with the younger brother of the Pink Keeper, Hibiki Sakurama. He's the one character who knows how rotten the Rangers are and how they've kept so many tragedies swept under the rug, but he also understands why they're necessary because of the threat of executive invaders. His goal is to fix the Rangers, whereas D wants to completely destroy them. And the story of Ranger Reject truly kicks off when the two of them separate to chase their own goals, with D mimicking Hibiki in society and pretending to be a colorless ranger trying to find a squad to join, while Hibiki tries to accomplish his dream by investigating the dregs of society. Through Hibiki, D begins to realize that he can't really do all of this on his own, and also that not all humans and rangers are greedy individuals. His own beliefs as a monster begin to waver as D wears Hibiki's skin and learns about the different divisions of rangers, and how most of them are assholes who are in it for the glory, but also that there are a lot of rangers out there who genuinely want to be heroes and save people. Ranger Reject does a really good job at handling D's confusion when it comes to navigating this bizarre world, and that confusion is something I felt as a reader as well. Throughout Ranger Reject, it always feels like D is a few steps behind others who have far more dubious dreams than he does, and often play him like a fiddle to achieve said dreams since they know a lot more than he does. As a ranger, he's able to see the inner workings of the different squads and the truth behind their activities and the kind of despair and destruction they've brought on due to their sheer greed. As more details come out about how invaders came to be, what the Dragon Keeper's divine weapons are made from, and how much the Keepers know about executive bosses, it becomes very clear that the Rangers and humanity's biggest opponent isn't these invaders, it's themselves. There are human organizations that worship these boss monsters, revering them as gods that'll bring salvation. There are organizations like the Invaders' Rights Association that protest for equal rights for invaders and letting them live on the surface among humans. D, an actual invader, asks for literally none of this. Yet humans go out of their way to construct and push the ideal of all monsters towards other humans without even interacting with an invader themselves. Before he knows it, humans are tearing each other down over invaders while D is left feeling empty and aimless as he came into this thinking it was just going to be monsters versus humans, not humans versus humans. Although this kind of stuff is normal from a human's point of view, D is lost in the sauce when it comes to all of this, and he eventually learns that his identity as a monster isn't all who he is, and he can choose what he fights for and rebel against both sides. He learns about how much humans vary from person to person, and that the people at the top don't reflect the beliefs of those below. D himself still wants to go out and take out all the Dragon Keepers, but after his experiences with humans, he most definitely doesn't want to follow the will of the boss monsters that created him either. The boss monsters themselves don't care about D or any fighters in general, as they view them as just objects to use for their greedy goals, and D finds himself clashing with multiple of them as the story progresses. There are multiple characters within Ranger Reject who go through a similar character arc themselves, all just to arrive at the conclusion that they are in control of their own destiny, and that they don't need to follow the sheep mentality that many others do. We got a monster saving humans, but also many humans siding with monsters and bringing the downfall of humanity itself. It's written a lot more realistically than I had anticipated. D himself doesn't believe he's a good being at all. He just does what he thinks he needs to do, and sometimes that involves a little bit of killing. He goes through a lot of mental conflict when another messed up truth is revealed about his bosses or the Rangers, and seeing him contemplate what he thinks is right is great, especially as the story goes on and it becomes very clear that Hibiki's mentality of correcting the Rangers had a huge effect on how D is navigating through all of these battles. I don't really want to spoil much since a lot of the enjoyment of Ranger Reject comes from the shocking events that reveal the truth behind the activity of the Rangers and monsters, but when I say the Dragon Keepers and Ranger organization as a whole are fucked up, I mean they're fucked up. They have no boundaries when it comes to creating new weapons using human material, studying invaders to potentially create more of them, and letting hordes of humans die without the public ever knowing because one of them had a slip up. They will do whatever is required to maintain their image and keep sales up, especially at the detriment of others. The Red Ranger in particular will not hesitate to kill you if you insult his popularity or heroism. On the flip side, there are humans out there that truly believe in the salvation brought by the monsters and being one with them. One of the arcs focused on a boss executive who basically keeps everyone trapped within a school day and they live the same day over and over again. Surprisingly, when the monster was taken down, students were furious that their fake utopia was taken away from them. This show's done a really good job at showing how varied humans are and how sometimes they don't even want to be saved. Sometimes the salvation brought by a higher being is all they desire, even if it results in death. People often fall victim to sheep mentality, and time again in Ranger Reject, it's shown that the public's seen flip-flopping their perception of the Rangers and invaders based on specific organizations and agendas. The fact that both sides are pretty shady makes D's identity dilemma even more interesting. Seeing others face the horrific reality that the invaders and Rangers they're supporting are pretty twisted and don't strive for the peace they promised makes them even more relatable to D. Everyone's got their own goals in mind, yet they're being united in such such a unique way, and they overcome their powerlessness in the grand scheme of things much like D does. It's amazing. Ranger Reject does a great job at handling gray morality in D and Rangers alike. The Dragon Keepers are very well aware that they aren't good people, and some of them don't even try to hide it. They're aware that they're a necessity, since only their divine weapons can successfully kill invaders and executive invaders, and they use this knowledge to their advantage in the worst way possible. Even within the Ranger organizations, there's constant backstabbing and spying going on. No one trusts each other, and it feels like a clash of dictatorships as Ranger Reject goes on. You either choose corruption and oppression from the Dragon Keepers, or death/salvation by alien beams. Both sides keep on doing what they want to do to satiate their desires, much like D. If you want a show that's going to keep you constantly guessing about what's going to happen next in a wonderfully twisted world that's being brilliantly explored layer by layer, definitely check out Ranger Reject. If you love the boys, you'll surely love the Rangers.